what I'll do, we'll be using all the balances on the balance sheet. So I'm going to copy the balance sheet over to another worksheet just so I have it handy when referring to those balances. So here I've started a statement of cash flows, just the formats. And again, I will pick the date button there to get the date. And then we can start with our operating activities. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to copy and paste the related formula for net income. It'll be retained earnings to each place on the statement of cash flows. But when I do that, because I've copied and pasted, I'll have two cells with the same formula in it. Normally, whatever I would do in one cell would affect the other cell as well. But we don't want that in this case because we may change some groupings, which we will in the statement of cash flows. We may change the presentation so that it subtracts or adds. So I'm going to go to item balance. It still has everything I've done here, but I'm going to click on new ID. And what that's going to do is disconnect from the cell we have in the balance sheet. So now if I make changes to this $100,000 balance, it's not going to affect my balance sheet, and my balance sheet will stay in balance. One of the changes that we'll be making as we go through this is to change to a credit balance. Everything on here we want to be a credit balance, and that way we don't have to think about, are we adding to the operating activities, net income from operating activities, or are we subtracting from? We don't even have to think about it. I could actually create this whole statement of cash flows and have no idea what I'm doing. Now, I'm going to go and fill a few more of these. Changes in current assets and liabilities. For depreciation, I'm going to copy and paste my fixed asset balance. And then double click, and that's another way to take me back to my item balance window. And right here, I'm going to click on new ID because I'm about to make a change. I don't want my fixed assets accounts in this balance. I just want accumulated depreciation. So I'm going to move those out of the way back to ungrouped accounts. Again, my balance sheet is fine. It's going to keep all the fixed assets together because I've created a new ID. And then I'm going to click on debit to change this to a credit balance so that it's adding back. Next, we'll do our change in accounts receivables. And copy, paste it over here. If I hadn't copied my balance sheet for reference here, I would just go to that worksheet, double click new ID, and change it to a credit balance. Let's do prepaid expenses. Find the related account. Copy, paste the formula here, double click new ID for this, and change it to a credit balance every time. Inventory. You know how to do this by now. Paste it, new ID, credit balance, and then lastly our current liabilities. Now, this time, this will already be a credit balance, so we don't need to change that. We just have to assign a new ID. Now I need to total this up. So again, I'm going to use my total command by clicking on it rather than using sum from Excel. And I do want to total up everything here. So I'm going to highlight it, move it to the left, and I have my total for the operating activities. Now I will actually spare you from watching the same thing here. If I continued on, I would do the same with the investing activities and the financing activities. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that is not a statement of cash flows. Well, I do realize that. So there's one more step we'll do to make it a statement of cash flows. We're going to highlight everything here, and we're going to change the period it reflects. Right now, we copied everything from the balance sheet, so it reflects 12/31/14. I'm going to click Select Period, and I don't want just 12/31/14. I want the difference, so I'm going to select the range of 12/31/13 and 12/31/14. When I click OK, now I have a real statement of cash flows. So I don't really need this from anymore. I can get rid of that. Maybe hide some of the zero balances. So what you may have noticed, oh, and it does reconcile. Your Excel can tell us that the increase in cash and cash equivalents plus the beginning balance of cash is in fact $53,191. So I could have created this entire thing never having learned how to create a statement of cash flows, because there's the process there that Excel FSM allows us to use that's entirely logical, and we get to the same answer as if we had just created this from scratch, either in a special worksheet or on a piece of paper, however we normally do it. To create comparative columns or financials, I'm going to copy the column and paste it right here. And now I'm going to use the select period again to change the period that this reflects. So I'm going to click on select period, and rather than the difference between 2015 and 2014, I want the difference between 2014 and 2013. And then we should recognize these numbers as the statement of cash flows we created earlier. There's one other way we can use that select period button. I'm going to copy this one cell, and that is going to be my ending balance for, excuse me, 12/31/14. And I'm going to copy it again right here for the beginning balance. That's obviously not the beginning balance, but here's where I can use select period again. I'm going to just select a different period for that number. And what I want is the beginning balance or the ending balance of 2013. And then when I click on that, now that same formula updated for the year that I want. So that's very flexible. You can use select period anywhere in your workbook and reuse the work you've done in a prior period for a current period. Go to our website, excel-fsm.com, and download your 30-day free trial that lets you have a full version of the software for 30 days.